Good evening, everyone. We'll get started in a minute or two just to allow a few more attendees to come online. Okay, we'll get started. Could I just, from the presenters, just get a thumbs up that you're hearing me? Everything is good? Great. Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. A hearty welcome to this meeting. My name is Joe Mihevc, and I will be acting as the chair and facilitator for this important meeting. Bruce Davis of Public Progress is not available this evening, and I will be acting in his stead. By way of background, I am also a community engagement facilitator working on socializing other shelter sites across the city. And some of you may know that I was also a city councillor for 28 years in the city of Toronto and the former city of York. I can appreciate, as facilitator, that a new shelter in South Etobicoke is a difficult discussion for many. I will be acting this evening as a facilitator, not advocating for any position or person. I will try to do my best to be fair to everyone. My goal is to fulfill the purpose of the meeting, and I'd ask the tech people to advance the slides. Second slide. Great. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to highlight community feedback that has been received to date, to provide updates and an overview of 66 3rd Street and the shelter that is going there. It is to respond to questions, concerns, and offers of support from the community, and to contribute with the overall goal to contribute to the success of this shelter in the community. There you have the agenda that is before you. There are a number of presenters. While that agenda looks short, there are many presenters and then eventually panelists as well. On the presenter side, and this will be number 2 when we do the City of Toronto updates, we will have Deputy Mayor Amber Morley, who's the City Councillor for Ward 3 as well. Gord Tanner, who is the General Manager, which is the highest position within the Toronto Shelter and Support Services Division. Loretta Ramadin is the Director of Infrastructure, Planning and Development within TSSS. We have Simon McKenzie, who will be saying a few words as well, a manager at Create TO. David Margulies will be speaking on the New Toronto Initiative, and you see that there under point number 3. Under point 4, you will also hear from the Etobicoke Lakeshore Shelter Support Coalition from Aaron Panjer. I'm sorry if I didn't get that name right. And also we will be hearing from Lynn Daly, who is the Executive Director of the Christie Ossington Neighborhood. I forget what the last C stands for. Okay, so we'll start with a land acknowledgement, and I would invite Suhal Ahmed, who's a manager with planning and engagement, to give that acknowledgement.
Thanks, Joe. We acknowledge the land we are on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands.
Thank you very much, Suhal. Next slide, please. I'll pass the baton over to Tarek Bakas, who is a manager of operation and support, also with TSSS, or sometimes we say TS3. Over to you, Tarek.
Thank you, Joe. The City of Toronto acknowledges all treaty people, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as the result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. We pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent.
Thank you, Tarek and Suhal, for those land acknowledgements and ancestral acknowledgements. Next slide, please. So again, I understand that there are strong feelings out there on this shelter. Hence, let's agree to a meeting code of conduct. Let's be our best selves this evening, especially when there is strong disagreement amongst us. So here are the meeting code of conduct rules. As both participants and panelists, we will, all of us, be respectful in words and action to all in attendance, be patient with technology, share the air, listen, and when needed, and ask for clarification. Actively participate and speak from your own perspective, respect personal and organizational confidentiality, and of course, racist or other forms of prejudicial, derogatory, or discriminatory comments and questions, including name calling, will not be tolerated. I will just simply ask the techie people to shut that down. The City of Toronto is an inclusive public organization. Next slide, please. You've seen on the agenda that there will be a 50-minute community conversation time when you can ask questions, express concerns, and so on. Please be aware that this meeting is being recorded. Your opinions, statements, and voice will become part of the public record. If you are asking a question, you may wish to edit your name display. Your face will not be presented on the Zoom call, but your name will be if that is your choice. That piece is really up to you. If you want to discuss a private matter, please contact us, and you'll see this email address a number of times, 66third@gmail.com. We have a number of opening comments, the first being from Deputy Mayor Amber Morley, City Councillor for Ward 3. Over to you, Councillor Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you so much, Joe, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join us tonight as part of our ongoing discussions related to the shelter at 66 3rd Street. I'm looking forward to an informative discussion and together as a team answering some of the big questions from our residents. I understand that local residents, businesses, and organizations have shared both concerns and support for this shelter over the past few months since its announcement. My office has been working hard with Toronto Shelter Support Services, TS3, to answer many of the questions you have brought forward about the process. I hope this will be an opportunity to address some more of those concerns raised and share how we will be working together over the next 3 to 5 year process to make sure this shelter is the best fit possible for our community's needs. We've been working very hard in the background and have some important announcements to make at this meeting, which my colleagues will speak to later in the presentation. As many of you will know, I am a lifelong resident of the immediate community and was born and raised here in New Toronto. This is my home too, and I care deeply about how we work to support it. I've experienced the growing number of people, our neighborhoods and community members living on the streets and in our parks, which again is no secret to anybody. Over the past few years, we've seen an increase in homelessness in Etobicoke and of course citywide. My office has worked closely with TS3 to support those living in encampments to secure indoor shelter. As I've mentioned to many of you in conversations, meetings, and calls, one of the biggest obstacles and challenges that we are faced with is the lack of capacity in our shelter system to intake new clients. People are turned away daily and they have nowhere else to go. So it's really important that we're having this conversation. We're working hard to get this right. That is my commitment. And it will not be a quick process. We've got seasoned experts involved every step of the way, and we'll be working closely. Sorry,
listen,
Yasmin. Oh, not Yasmin. We have, yeah, there we go. Perfect. Sorry about that background noise. We've got our seasoned experts involved every step of the way, and we'll be working closely with the community to ensure operational and design concerns are addressed. I want to recognize that we are joined by staff from MPP Lee Fairclough's office, and MPP Fairclough has also been engaged with my office and staff from TS3. I look forward to hearing from you. I know this is not easy, but it is crucially important. I believe in a society where we care for our most vulnerable, and I believe we have all a responsibility to work together and get this right. So I look forward to the discussion, and I'll turn it back over to you, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Morley. We'll now turn the floor, next slide, please, over to Gord Tanner, who is the General Manager of TS3. Again, Gord is the most senior person within the Shelter Division. Gord, over to you.
Well, thanks so much, Joe and Deputy Mayor Morley, and good evening. My name is Gord Tanner, and I am the General Manager at Toronto Shelter and Support Services. I'm a social worker, and I've been working with the city and with this division for 20 years. And I first want to thank everyone who's attending this evening virtually. I think we're up to almost 300 people. And so, by this significant number of people here and the conversation that's underway, I know how much each of you care about your community and the proposed program that we're talking about this evening. In my many years at the city, I've been engaged in many conversations about new shelter developments, and many, at times, they can be challenging. I find they can be challenging due to the reality that, some people don't know the serious nature of the housing and homelessness emergency we have going on in the city of Toronto right now. I find they can be challenging sometimes because people, who aren't involved in this work don't have a great understanding of the programs and supports available to help people experiencing homelessness. And at times they can be challenging because of stigma and fear associated with people who experience homelessness. But through each of these conversations, we as city staff are listening closely to the feedback that we hear from community members and stakeholders, and we are making changes to the proposed programs we establish. And you'll learn more about some of those changes this evening. So tonight is no different. We're here to share with you the best information we can about the shelter program, which will be built at 66 3rd Street. And I think you'll find our team has already made some of the changes to the proposed program based on what we've heard from you, community stakeholders, and the local councillor. This is a process, and it's one that will continue over the coming years until the shelter opens and beyond when the shelter opens. From the many meetings that I've led or attended on proposed shelters, I can tell you from experience that the fears or anxieties that people may have before a shelter opens, they do not play out when the shelter opens. We will be here with our shelter operator, with the local councillor, and we will be here to be consistent, we'll be accountable, and we will be a good neighbor and community builder with you in New Toronto. So I look forward to the conversation this evening, your questions, and to our ongoing work together as we make this program a success for the community and for the vulnerable people that it will serve. Back to you, Joe. Thanks.
Yes, thank you very much, Gord. Next slide, please. We are now going to hear from Loretta Ramadan, who is the Director of Infrastructure, Planning and Development. Loretta has about a 12-minute presentation. At the 10-minute mark of her presentation, I'll just kind of give a little cue to speed it up or lengthen it if she wishes to that 12-minute point. So over to you, Loretta, for this is the key piece of the presentation that folks will hear tonight. Loretta.
Thanks, Joe. I also want to start off by acknowledging the community and acknowledging how difficult and hard it's been for many of you since we announced the shelter. And I know there's been a wide range of emotions that may have been felt, from fear of the unknown or anxiety, and in some cases relief, relief that there could be a program here that would support individuals who are experiencing homelessness right here in South Etobicoke. And I know many of you feel that homelessness isn't necessarily an issue here, but it does exist everywhere, right across the city. And in many cases, it's not blatant or obvious based on an encampment in a nearby park, but it could be hidden. And it's hidden because that homeless individual may have found a friend's couch to sleep on for a few nights. But sometimes even the charity of a friend can wear out. And that's where emergency shelter programs becomes that option that's available to them until permanent housing can be secured. And over the last few months since the project was launched in December, through our facilitator, Public Progress, and with the city staff and the counselor's office, we have participated in many conversations with you. Some were through smaller stakeholder sessions, such as with the Warden Woods Manor and the local BIA, and others were one-on-one phone calls and door-to-door conversations. There were many emails, and we also had our large drop-in event in February. And this virtual event is one of the continual sessions that we will have with the community who wish to hear information about the project and ask questions and give feedback. And I also want to assure you that through these sessions you have been heard, and we are listening, and we're taking notes and reflecting and considering how those the feedback and comments can be translated into a shelter that's well integrated into this community. And tonight we'll share some of those details. Next slide, please. Some of the things we've heard through our dialogue is that there is a need for shelters, and that our communications should be more transparent, with opportunities for greater community input. We've heard questions and feedback about site design and the site selection process, and requests for clarity on the planned operations. And all of these comments and feedback and concerns raised were considered, and decisions made with respect to the program are also being done in alignment to the needs of those experiencing homelessness, along with the feedback we're receiving from the community. Next slide. So to provide some background, our homelessness services capital infrastructure strategy was created in order to exit the expensive temporary hotels, as well as to provide growth in the system, given the rise in number of encampments we are seeing throughout the city. There will be 20 planned locations over the next 10 years that will be located throughout the city, intended to serve a wide range of populations. The city currently does have over 100 shelter programs that are located throughout the city and operated successfully, and they're commonly located near community services, daycares, schools, and libraries. We know that housing is the ultimate solution to homelessness, but shelter spaces are needed for those when they are in immediate crisis. And the first 6 sites that were announced in December included 66 Third, that will be one of these new shelters. Next slide, please. So based on the feedback received and in looking at the demand for the shelter services, pleased to advise that the location here at 66 Third will be a mixed adult shelter serving specifically seniors age 55 and older. The site will accommodate approximately 50 spaces. I want to highlight that, this decision takes into consideration not only the community feedback received as to what would be necessary to ensure the site is well integrated into community, but is also based on the need and consideration of what the services we need for a homeless population, as well as the built form that's possible here. Currently, our shelter system serves approximately 11,000 individuals, of which 1,500 of them are seniors. 500 of them are located in our temporary hotel programs. So services addressing the needs of seniors are definitely needed. Right now, the city operates 2 senior shelters, one that's located in Scarborough and one that's in Etobicoke. And based on, that 20 to 25 square foot size facility that you'll hear us talking about as being the optimal size for a new shelter, the added infrastructure that's needed to accommodate seniors, such as elevating devices, spaces for additional medical supports, added barrier-free spaces for wheelchair accessibility, are some of the prime reasons why the bed count would now be in and around that 50 mark. Could be a little more, could be a little less, and we'll land on that exact bed count as we move through design over the next few months. Also pleased to announce that the operator for our new site here will be the Christie Ossington Neighborhood Center. And Lynn Daly here is here as the executive director, who is an incredible service provider. And they'll introduce themselves a little later on to give a bit of an overview. I do want to highlight that they're not here to answer questions. They haven't had the time to start to think about and plan what operations at this site will look like. But they're very happy to be a part of the ongoing engagement with the community, along with us at the staff at the city and our community engagement facilitator to continue to hear feedback and thoughts on, and they will be and want to be a good partner with the community in the neighborhood when the site opens in 3 years. And we are excited to have them joining our team. And I know many of you are may be thinking now, what does having a seniors program here mean? And I'll be honest, we don't have all the answers today. We'll answer questions based on normal operations and how our other services are run. For example, with things like case management, seniors, when they find themselves reaching homelessness, it could be due to a job loss, which, as you know, when a senior loses their job, it's not necessarily easy for them to find a new job given their age, or a decline in health, or just insufficient income because maybe they were married and their spouse passes away. Now they just can't afford the housing on their own. And we know the wait list for seniors residences and long-term care facilities are quite extensive. So when a senior does find themselves in immediate housing needs, and maybe families can't accommodate them any longer, shelters do sometimes become that only space they can rely on until permanent housing solutions can be secured. Next slide. So just to touch on a little bit on the design and construction, because we received a lot of questions with respect to the build form and why the location makes sense here. And you'll see on the screen, there's a bit of a rendering, and it's really just to show you how the building would fit into the neighborhood right behind the Wood Manor, with the New Toronto Senior Center, along with the commercial facility on Lakeshore there. And it was a consideration we took into account to ensure that it would be planning wise well suited and fitting in with the neighborhood. We've been asked how we would fit a 20 to 25,000 square foot facility on a site that is only 9,000 square feet in space. And that's because we would be building around four levels or 4 stories in this facility. So, assuming the floor plate is maybe only 6,000 square feet, multiply that by 4, that's how we arrive at that 20 to 25,000 square foot space.
10 minutes, Greta.
All right, I will try to speed it up a bit. We've also received questions about, where clients might spend some time to be outdoors. We've talked about having a rooftop terrace as a way to provide that outdoor amenity space for our residences. We've heard concerns about, possible overlook into the neighbors' yards, and part of the design process is hearing that feedback and taking it into consideration so we can plan the patio, the rooftop patio, so it's on the north side of the building, with the overlooks being onto the lakeshore area. um, and there are many areas as we move through the design that we'd be happy to receive the feedback and community input and incorporate it as we move through the process. And I just want to wrap up my sort of portion of the presentation by saying I know that, like, many of you are now wondering, well, what does a senior shelter mean? You'll have more questions based on that. And sometimes seeing is understanding. And I mentioned we do have 2 dedicated seniors facilities in the city. So I would want to invite community leaders along with the counselor's office to join us on a tour of one of these sites. We won't be able to accommodate a large group, but key community leaders we would be happy to have join the counselor with the city staff to see one of these spaces and understand a little better. And I will hand it back over to you now, Joe.
Great, Loretta. Thank you very much, and especially for making that announcement this evening. Next slide, please. And I'd like to introduce, as that's passing on, Simon McKenzie, who's a manager with Creatio. This is around. He will speak to the shelter siting issue, which seems to have come up quite a bit. And just so people know, Creatio is a city agency, arm's length from City Hall and from City Council, that manages the city's real estate portfolio. Over to you, Simon.
Thanks, Joe, and good evening, everyone. So as Joe said, my name is Simon McKenzie. I'm a development manager at Creatio. I appreciate there's been a lot of public interest in the site selection process, so happy to shed some light on why 66 Third was selected. So when the HSIS was first approved by Council, Creatio, alongside our colleagues in corporate real estate management and TSSS, undertook a comprehensive real estate review to identify potential shelter sites. Our investigation concluded with 200 sites across the city, including 14 directly within Ward 3, and that resulted in 6 sites being selected for the first phase of the HSIS, including 66 3rd Street. The key criteria for selection was site availability, zoning permissions, site size, proximity to existing shelters, access to amenities, and proximity to transit. So in terms of 66 3rd Street specifically, with respect to site availability, the site was deemed surplus by the Toronto Parking Authority, so was immediately available, and this was critical to meet HSIS timelines. In terms of zoning, the site's prevailing zoning permits a municipal shelter. In terms of site size, Creatio's early due diligence activities confirmed that a shelter generally conforming to TSSS design guidelines could fit on the site. And as we've worked through this with our architects, that's been confirmed. So there's no doubt that a shelter can comfortably fit on the site. In terms of proximity from existing shelters, we've identified a clear shelter gap within New Toronto. You'll see in the appendices, we have a great diagram illustrating that. So I'd urge you all to take a look at that once the slides are circulated. There's many amenities in the immediate vicinity, which helps with integration. And in terms of proximity to transit, the site is directly adjacent to Lakeshore Boulevard, a major arterial with public transit. So with all those factors considered, 66 3rd Street was confirmed for use as a shelter. And with that, I will pass it back to Joe.
Great. Thank you very much, Simon. Next slide, please. We're gonna go back to Gord to speak to this slide, which speaks to shelter operations. Back to you, Gord Tanner.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So, how does the shelter run? What supports are available? So within the shelter system, most people who are admitted to shelter are are admitted after receiving a referral from our central intake phone line service. So people don't just come to the shelter or line up for services to get in. When they arrive, they're welcomed and will receive an orientation to the program and all the supports on site. They're often, if not immediately, in the first few days, assigned a caseworker or counselor who will help them develop a case plan, specifically around housing. Um, all of our shelters are staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Usually there's 3 shifts during a 24-hour period with staff. And the staff are generally social workers, social service workers, or people with demonstrated years of experience in delivering social services, or sometimes people with lived experience of homelessness. We have shelter standards, which are issued by the city, which guide the delivery of supports within the shelter system, and also list the required training that staff might have or must have. So some of that training would include things such as case management essentials or mental health training, trauma-informed care, crisis intervention and de-escalation, first aid and CPR response, overdose prevention and response, harm reduction training, and maybe a range of different equity and human rights training as well. Programs generally have a curfew, which at times can be flexible for people who may be working, shift work or may have other commitments in the community. Our caseworkers and counselors would spend their time applying for housing, completing housing applications, applying for income supports, maybe linking people to employment or volunteer opportunities. And at times they may be working with caring family members to help coordinate care for an individual. Within a senior shelter, we tend to see more health and unmet health issues. So staff might assist in managing medications, support people to get to and transported to appointments in the community. Recreational programming and outings to community events are a big part of what happens in shelters. And now I'm really happy to say that all of our shelters in Toronto have direct access to primary care. So that means that we'll be building clinical space within the shelter, and we'll have physicians, psychiatric support, nursing supports with links to specialty care. And those services would be coming directly to the shelter itself. What don't we do in shelters anymore? Well, we don't, and there was a time that we did. We asked people to leave during the day and come back at night, and that's no longer the case. In this shelter, people will be able to stay throughout the day and participate in programming or developing their case plan with a counselor or otherwise. This program will have a commercial kitchen. We'll offer 3 meals, nutritious meals per day. And this site, I think it's important to say this site will not be a supervised consumption location for people who may use substances. All our shelters within the city do operate from a harm reduction approach and philosophy. But what does that mean? Well, it means that we don't restrict or judge people if they are using drugs or alcohol, but we will engage with them on how to best manage their health if they're using substances. All our staff or all our shelters offer access to safe drug use supplies, condoms, supplies that are widely available in the community at hospitals, community centers, and pharmacies. Given again that this is a shelter for seniors, you won't see a lot of people using substances, but that can happen. Our shelters are pet friendly, so we don't want to separate people from their animals. And we at Toronto Shelter and Support Services operate as the shelter system manager. So we have a team of quality assurance specialists who are out. They visit the shelters, they assess the quality of care that's happening, the facilities against our standards. They talk to and receive feedback from clients about their experiences, and they review any complaints which may have come in from the community and follow up with our shelter providers for resolution. I think I'll stop there, and I'm sure there'll be more questions about what happens in shelters, but I hope that's helpful, and I'll pass it back to you, Joe.
Thank you very much, Gord. Next slide, please. Wow, this is a pleasure to introduce Lynn Daly, who's the Executive Director of the Christy Ossington Neighborhood Center. I got it right this time. And just so you know, she just got the gig, so to speak. So this is her introduction to the South Etobicoke community. Welcome to you, Lynn, and I'll give you the floor for a few introductory comments, recognizing, folks, that she will not really be answering questions today. City staff can answer questions, but there will be many opportunities in the weeks and months ahead for you to exchange with her and get a sense of her and her organization. So over to you, Lynn.
Don't forget to unmute there, Lynn, so we can hear you. Yeah. Or maybe if tech support can help with unmuting.
There we
you
go.
are. Mhm.
Okay, sorry about that. Yep, I'm Lynn Daly, the Executive Director at Christy Ossington Neighborhood Center. And first of all, I want to thank the city for choosing us, actually honoring us with this public trust. We have been operating for about 35 years in the community, and we began as residents who cared very deeply about our community and began and built a multi-service agency. So we also run children's programs, youth programs. We have community centers. We really are multi-service. And in addition, we also operate 4 shelters, a warming center, drop-ins, and all of our programs are intergenerational. So from the very beginning, we have really connected very deeply, being of the community, connected very deeply with the community and stakeholders to really address the deep concerns that people have in community. And I want to say from the beginning that I do know that people are struggling with some of these things, but what we found in our operations and the way we've engaged the community is that some of the people who have the deepest concerns right now are going to be the people who will feel the most proud of what we are able to build in the next few years. And I do want to say that we have deep respect for the voices and the knowledge and the insights of the people who live in the community. And we will also want to take time for you guys to understand also how we build our shelters and how we integrate within the community and how we fold in all the talents and the love and the empathy and the concern and the care that people have. I also want to say that I know that security and safety are front of mind for people. And I want to say this is absolutely front and center for all of us, for our staff, for the community, for all of our participants. And I think if, as you see how we work with the community and our community of residents, you'll see that it's a very peaceful, joyful place places that we build. And over the next couple of years and sooner, we'll also invite you guys to come and see our shelters and see how we operate. So you can really see how deeply we are committed to creating something very meaningful in the community. And I really look forward to working with you and for you to meet all our amazing staff and residents as well. So I'm looking forward deeply to meet with everybody.
Great. Thank you so much, Lynn. Okay, folks, we'll go to the next slide. We are now starting our community discussion. And to start that, we actually have organized 2 speakers who will be speaking from a community perspective. They're going in alphabetical order by name. There are 2 groups. One is the New Toronto Initiative, And the speaker for that will be David Margulies. I hope I said that right. Over to you, David. I will let you know at the 4-minute mark, just with a little nod, so that you can start to wrap up for your 5th minute.
Okay. You did indeed pronounce my name correctly. Do I not have a video?
No, is your video turned on?
As panelist.
I think the decision was made for privacy reasons that your video is not on.
It's not on. Let me see if I can fix that. And if, oh, here we go.
There you are.
All right. Hello, folks. And you did pronounce my name correctly, Joe. Not many people do. So kudos to you. My name is David, and I'm here representing New Toronto Initiative, advocating for a vibrant and thriving South Etobicoke. Just to let you know, we were told by the city that we would have a slide deck, and we had a detailed one prepared, but are no longer able to show it. So you can find it on our website at newtorontoinitiative.ca. Our group is comprised of hundreds of individuals located in New Toronto. And as a collective, none of us obviously want to see anyone unhoused. We all agree that shelter is a basic human need and that helping vulnerable people is a moral imperative. However, when decisions are made too quickly, without proper planning, and without weighing the long-term impacts of all vulnerable groups, including the most vulnerable, being children, seniors, and people with disabilities, then empathy alone is simply not enough. If we start off with homelessness in New Toronto, based on data and reports, there are less than 10 homeless people in New Toronto. In fact, based on a recent publication from the Toronto Star leveraging City Hall data, our area only recorded 2 single tent encampments over a 5-year period. Touching on the unhoused, obviously we know that not all unhoused are addicts, but according to the city's own stats and CAMH's stats, 50% have mental health issues and 42% have substance abuse problems, and 76% have 1 or more challenges. They're proposing this shelter to be built within 8 meters of a senior's residence and within 250 meters of 2 schools and Q's daycare. In the last decade, violence has increased 283%, again, city's own stats, between 2011 and 2021, where service use has only increased 66% in shelters. Critical incidents, and those are major incidents, in shelters have increased 5-fold from 2,000 to 10,000 per year over that same period. The shelter will be part of central intake and will import people from outside the area, and will also likely take in some of those released from the local jail if they don't have a fixed address. The shelter, as mentioned, will be a harm reduction facility, meaning a zero barrier 24/7 access to drug paraphernalia, but consumption will not be permitted on premises, which will obviously cause spill out to the alleyway behind Woods Manor, nearby parks, along streets, school playgrounds, and along the waterfront trail, endangering, by the way, both shelter clients and the community. The location has poor visibility and inadequate space for large emergency vehicles to access, and that's quoted by our local fire hall and a local constable. New Toronto already has an elevated crime rate, so let's focus on reducing that first. The City of Toronto Planning Department has declared that New Toronto does not have higher order transit, which is a requirement of shelter siting. New Toronto has in fact been called a transit desert. Increased demand on emergency shelters could overwhelm existing resources. In fact, the nearest police station is 7 kilometers away, and the nearest hospital is 5.8 kilometers away. The space does not even meet the guidelines from TSSS. The proposed site at 66 3rd fails to meet key requirements of the city's own Toronto shelter standards. These standards recommend on-site green space and designated areas for pets, neither of which are present. Instead, the plan includes a rooftop patio that directly overlooks private homes and a senior's residence, raising serious safety, privacy, and quality of life concerns for both shelter residents and neighbors alike. They also state that the site needs to be at least 15,000 square feet at minimum, and ours is only 9,000. And of the 6 new proposed shelters, they are 40,000 feet plus, 4 times ours. I'll end with this. We are part of a ward that is approximately 70 square kilometers. And this tiny neighborhood of just 2.5 square kilometers is already taking on the majority, meaning over 50% of all of the ward's supportive housing needs. Let me repeat that. This tiny neighborhood, which represents less than 3.5% of the ward's area and less than 10% of the population, already houses a majority of the ward's supportive housing needs. We are doing orders of magnitude more than our surrounding communities. Given that this will be the second harm reduction site in this tiny area, the only community, by the way, in the entire ward that has a single one, and it's located a couple blocks away from that one that's currently here, Lamp, it's hard to believe that this is not in some way targeted at New Toronto. As some of you are not aware,
Dave, 1 minute or less.
Yep. As some of you are not aware, this area has very unique constraints. We're hemmed in by the lake to the south, the train tracks to the north, a commercial dead zone to the east that spans 2 kilometers, and Humber Canvas to the west, and poor transit. Our little commercial area from Dwight Avenue to 13th is only 1.2 kilometers and struggling mightily. The truth is, while this area has an enormous heart, we simply cannot absorb a shelter. This is not a case of NIMBY, but for all the reasons we've described, it is rather a case of AIMBY, already in our backyard. And folks, our backyard is full at the moment. A quick FYI, NTI will be hosting our own in-person town hall sometime in the spring. Details to follow. Visit our website, newtorontoinitiative.ca, for more information and details, and we'll be happy to discuss everything to do with the shelter. Thank you. That's my time.
Thank you very much, David. Our next speaker with another community perspective is Erin Pannier. I hope I said that correctly, who is with the Etobicoke Lakeshore Shelter Support Coalition. Over to you, Erin. You could unmute them, raise them to a panelist or presenter.
Hi there. There are multiple Erins in the Zoom room currently. Would the Erin, please, from the Etobicoke Lakeshore Shelter Support Coalition, please raise their hand or rename them? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, Erin, you should be able to speak.
Welcome, Erin. You'll have also 5 minutes, and at about the 4-minute mark, I will let you know.
All right, I would like to share my face as well. I'm just trying to figure out how to do that.
We'll start the clock when that happens.
No, not sure how to do that. Sorry about that. I guess I'll talk, but I wanted to show my face. I guess that's a drawing of my face. Maybe you'll recognize me. We are the Etobicoke Lakeshore Shelter Support Coalition, a grassroots volunteer-led group of neighbors who aim to educate and mobilize fellow residents of South Etobicoke on issues of homelessness and housing. My name is Erin Pannier. I've lived, worked, and raised a son here in this community over the last 16 years. I decided to speak tonight to represent my group, since I know many of you in the community, and I have experienced sleeping outdoors due to unsafe housing conditions while working 2 jobs, and I have helped to support a friend who has struggled with homelessness due to not being able to afford rent. These represent 2 of the 3 top reasons in this city why people become homeless. In a time when the unaffordable housing crisis is at an all-time high, our city can't afford to delay life-saving programs like the new shelters. Here's the reality of homelessness in Toronto. Over 10,000 people in Toronto are unhoused, with about a quarter of them residing in Etobicoke. In the first 6 months of last year, according to Toronto Public Health, there was an average of more than 5 deaths per week among people experiencing homelessness. 26% of homeless folks in Toronto are 55 and up, and that is also city data. South Etobicoke is full of passionate, kind, and caring residents. We know at our core we want to care for our unhoused neighbors. As a community, we can't let fear stop us from coming together to change the story of homelessness in Toronto. There's just too many lives at stake. The fear surrounding unhoused persons and the planned shelter is not new to our community. It's a fear that unfortunately is pervasive across the city. Back in 2020, when they proposed a different, bigger shelter project of 95 beds, the same fear arose. As an indirect result, 2950 and 2970 Lakeshore remained stagnant, unused buildings, and the homelessness crisis worsened. Imagine the positive change we could make if we channeled that energy used to prevent shelters and affordable housing from getting built into finding ways to come together and make these projects work. Coming together to make 66 Third work well in our community isn't a pipe dream. We can learn from other examples across the world, such as Finland. In Finland, where similar concerns as ours were raised, residents came together to tackle work with the shelter provider, which made all efforts to tackle homelessness a success. These community coordinated efforts led to major change. The estimated number of long-term homeless people has decreased by 68% between 2008 and 2022 in Finland. Similar efforts in Finland could include community events, neighborhood walks, firm communication between all active parties, and where some are concerned about children's safety, form groups of volunteers to see kids from bus stops and chaperone them at certain times. That was a solution they came up with. Beyond the case studies and the statistics, we need to remember that unhoused folks are our neighbors too. Until we start seeing unhoused people as fellow neighbors, residents, and friends, until we unlearn harmful narratives about unhoused folks, many will suffer, struggle, and die. With the shelter not due to open until 2028 or 2030, there's plenty of time to work together to make it a safe, welcoming, and integrated space for all residents. That includes working with our fellow community members who have concerns in the New Toronto Initiative, and we call on interested members to work with us. We can take action together and work with the provider to address everyone's concerns. But to address our fears, none of us can take the easy way. We need to put in the effort for the community that we want. Groups like Hand in Hand, Haven on the Queensway, and Lamp Community Health Center have already set the example of what community care looks like in our neighborhood. We can build on those efforts, collaborating with the provider at 66 Third. Together, let's make 66 Third an inspiring model for future city support shelters and their communities. Thank you to Public Progress and Councillor Morley for the opportunity to engage meaningfully with the community.
Well, thank you very much. That you were on time, Aaron, and we really appreciate that, and we appreciate your comments. Now we're going into the section of the meeting, a virtual town hall. The way we've organized this is as follows. There will be 7 panelists that will be able to respond to concerns or to answer questions. They will be Councillor Deputy Mayor Amber Morley, Gord Tanner, Loretta Ramadin, all of whom have already presented. They will be added to by John Duncan, who is a senior planner with the city's planning department. There will be Simon McKenzie, who you also heard from. He's the manager with Create.to. We also have Scott McKean, who is an associate director with Safe.to, which is the city's non-policing efforts to create a safe city. And we have Nicholas McCantis, who is the staff sergeant at 22 Division, to give a policing perspective. So those are the people that will be called on to perhaps give comment or to clarify any questions that are asked. Next slide, please. So here's the way to ask a question or to make a very, very short, not more than a minute, comment to the wider audience. One is you can type your question in the question and answer box in your Zoom control panel. That's one way. A second way is to raise your hand to verbally ask your question, and I will then unmute your line and you will be prompted to ask your question to the panelists. If you are here with a phone, then what you need to do is dial *9 to raise and lower your hand. And obviously, we'll try to deal with as many questions and answers as possible. Bree will be my assistant in helping with the oral questions, the live questions, and Yasmin will be the techie help with the wider written questions. I would ask that you keep your remarks and questions to the point and short to allow for as many participants as possible to have a word. Okay, so we are open. The floor is now open to folks who may wish to ask a question using the two techniques that are there. Okay. Bree, do we have anyone who has signed up to ask a question online?
Yes, we do. So let's call on Health Promotion, Jasmine.
Health Promotion. Jasmine, the floor is yours. You may want to unmute yourself.
You're currently muted. Your hand is raised, but if you're able to unmute, you should be able to speak.
On my screen, it's bottom left.
Yes,
There we are.
sorry.
Okay.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It's really nice to be here. I just would like to know how we can work with the community. Like, what kind of model could we use where the community could be sure to have their biggest concerns dealt with? Like, would it be something like a round table or something like what kind of model would be very, very effective for us?
Loretta or Gord, that's, I think, over to you, or maybe even Amber.
I can start. I mean, we're going to have continued opportunities for ongoing dialogue and discussion, and you know, some might be with respect to the ongoing operations. Some of those discussions might be in relation to the design of the building, and this is with, you know, pre-opening, as we work on, you know, some of the program modeling for the site. So if there's a specific area you're interested in participating in, to be kept in the loop and to be a part of those tables, I would encourage you to email us and let us know your interest in being a part of those discussions. I know Deputy Mayor Morley's office is also interested in us creating tables with respect to safety, to have ongoing working groups of that nature. About 6 months before the site opens, we would set up what we call a community liaison committee, which is again an opportunity for individuals to express an interest in participating, so that once the site is open and operational, as concerns or questions arise, we have this on our ongoing table and format for continued engagement and dialogue.
Anything to add, Councillor Morley or Gord?
Just to say that, you know, those are our commitments, absolutely, is to continue to convene opportunities for the community as we move through this process. And thanks, Loretta, for highlighting operations, design. Those are some of the things that we'll be able to put our fingerprints on as a neighborhood. And we are deeply committed as an office to, you know, convening those stakeholder working group tables as we move through. And certainly with the support of Lynn Daly and the team at CONC, will be really instrumental in leaning on them for their guidance and expertise in this area, while also providing a local perspective and voice. So lots more to come in that regard, but we're absolutely committed to that.
Thank you, Councillor. And the new word of the day is CONC, I guess. Christie Ossington Neighborhood Center. Great, thank you. The next question, Bree, do you have one?
Yes, we have a question from Matt.
Matt, if you can unmute yourself, that would be great. There you go.
Hello.
Matt.
The city's own HSCIS proposal calls for 20 shelters at a projected cost of $674.5 million. That's nearly $34 million per shelter, or over $420,000 per bed created, assuming the original 80-bed setup, which is already extremely high costs. Costs are likely to only go higher if you reduce capacity or build multi-story to fit an undersized lot like 3rd Street, because the fixed costing of services, staffing, and infrastructure don't scale down. So how can the city justify going ahead with this site when it doesn't meet the own minimum requirements for land size, setbacks, or transit, rather than choosing a site that can actually support it?
Board, maybe Simon?
Sure. I mean, I can start just on the cost piece. And so thank you for the question, Matt. You know, part of this proposal and capital work is though that we are either purchasing or using city assets for the purpose of shelter. And so while there are capital costs, these programs are going to allow us to get out of thousands of hotel rooms that we are currently paying for, where we have families and single individuals, where we're paying lease costs for rooms, catered food, and other things. These shelters will operate at about half the cost of those current shelter hotel programs. So there is cost savings with a significant capital investment. These properties will be city assets over the long term, and thus will be assets to the city and the Toronto taxpayer as well. So I'll stop there, but I think there was another question on the either the planning or the size or footprint.
Simon?
Sure, happy to add. Thanks, Matt. I guess what I would say is that they're design guidelines, and as I mentioned in the earlier presentation, our internal analysis at Creatio showed we can comfortably build a shelter that generally conforms to the design guidelines, including 4 to 6 stories in line with the other HSIS sites. And this analysis has been confirmed as we advance design with our architects. So we're very comfortable with the site that it can fit a shelter.
Great, thank you very much. Next question, Bree.
The next question is Simone Byrne.
Simone, welcome. You're on mute. Great. Welcome, Simone.
Hello there. We were assured that the trained professionals from the city, TSSS, and Creatio had spent years carefully researching and selecting this site. Yet here we are, a mere 4 months later after the public announcement, and the demographic and the number of residents has already been revised. Given the significant changes, how can the city continue to stand by the claim that proper due diligence was done? And can you help us understand how these late-stage shifts align with the original selection criteria?
Thank you, Simone. Maybe Loretta?
Yeah. So our capital infrastructure strategy was approved by council in December of 2023. We started the search for shelter sites under the strategy last year. Our colleagues in Creatio took carriage of looking at city-owned lands that would be available for this purpose. When we announced the location in December, it was with an understanding of not just this location, all the locations, a broad spectrum of populations that would need to be served across the board. So part of the work we do with community engagement is to understand and receive feedback. So I wouldn't call this broad shifts by any means. We're still serving a mixed adult population. It's just going to be more targeted towards seniors.
Great, thank you. And you want to add to that? Okay, next question, Bree.
The next question is from Liz.
Liz.
Hi, thanks so much for taking my question. The proposed emergency municipal shelter at 66 3rd Street directly contradicts the goals and vision of the Lakeshore Boulevard West Avenue study. The Avenue study promotes investment, mixed use development, and proposes a new laneway from 1st to 3rd Street to encourage growth and infrastructure support. The study highlights the need for assets like Green Pea parking in New Toronto to support new residential and business development along Lakeshore Boulevard West. No investor will want to develop in an area adjacent to an emergency shelter offering harm reduction. It undermines the city's own planning objectives, compromises business viability, public safety, and any future development prospects. This situation reflects a troubling lack of coordination between city planning and shelter services, and it is unacceptable that such a significant proposal could move forward without alignment on long-term neighborhood planning objectives. How are these concerns being addressed, and how is it expected that development and the area's long-term revitalization goals will be realized with an emergency shelter in this location?
Good question, well articulated. Thank you very much, Liz. As it happens, we do have John Duncan, who's the senior planner with the Toronto City Planning Department, that can address those questions and concerns. John.
Thanks. I'm actually with the zoning section, so my expertise is mainly on zoning. So I have not been deeply involved with that avenue study. My understanding is that there is already a lane in this area, though, so I'm not sure what contradiction there would be between that aspect of an avenue study and in this area. Councillor Morley, I think you were.
Yeah, thanks, John. I'm happy to jump in on this. I actually had a briefing with staff on the Lakeshore Avenue study earlier today, and it's been a piece of work. As you know, Liz, has been underway for a couple of months now. It is a live piece of work. It has not yet come through Community Council or been received and sort of adopted by City Council. We expect that will be happening around June or July and the next couple of months, but it's not quite there yet. And I would just say, you know, this work and the work of Create TO along with TS3 has kind of predated the Lakeshore Avenue study, which is looking to harmonize and address sort of outdated 20-plus-year-old, visioning for our community. And so certainly there are a lot of components of the Lakeshore Avenue study that are not going to be implemented overnight. It's sort of a visionary kind of aspirational document as we grow to provide guidelines about how that looks. And again, you know, while there's for sure some interconnection between the shelter project that we're discussing here tonight and the ultimate goals of the Lakeshore Avenue study, I wouldn't agree that they're necessarily in contradiction or in contrast to one another. So I appreciate that the community is paying close attention. We're excited about that Avenue study coming forward. There will be more opportunities for community to have a voice on it. As I mentioned, it'll come through Community Council. And so if there are folks here who want to make a deputation or submit comments specifically to your perspectives on how this might impact that, we're always happy to hear from you. So I'll just leave it there.
Joe, could I add one thing there?
Yeah, sorry, Simon. Yeah, go ahead.
Just, I'm not sure if the community fully appreciates that this shelter will still have to go through a development application, which will be reviewed by planning staff. So our internal analysis, we're confident that there's no clear direct contradictions with that planning study or any other guidelines that any development application has to subscribe to. But if we missed anything and if there are clear issues, then that'll be identified and we'll have to respond to that. So as I say, I don't think there's any issues, and if there are, planning staff will catch them.
Great, thank you, Simon. That's very helpful. So I'll do one more question live, and Yasmin has been in the wings looking at the Q&As that have come through the written format. And so, yeah, Yasmin, you'll be on deck after the next questioner. Bree, who's the next questioner?
The next questioner is Natasha Mistry.
Natasha, welcome.
Hi, everyone. I do want to say thank you to everybody, because I know this is not an easy job. I have tremendous respect for you all coming forward and doing this, but at the same time, with that respect, I have tremendous concern over what's been shared. Public process conducted some community engagement. I don't feel that it's it was a great thing. I don't share your belief that it was done properly. You mentioned 2 coffee meet and greets at the seniors center. That did not even, it didn't target the majority of the people who didn't speak language. There was a language barrier. It didn't invite enough people who are seniors. I don't think he made enough effort to get to the majority of the residents, I should say. There were 3 parent focus groups. That would be a total of 30 people. That is hardly indicative of how many people and how many parents we have in the community. The faith-based groups ignored leaders that are in the area, chose some leaders from out of the area that made up the majority of that group. Other shelters that you are citing that are operating successfully are 3 times the size of this shelter. You're also talking about surplus lots. 66 3rd Street is not a surplus lot. It's about 80% used, and it's a fraction of the size of a lot such as 1010 Yonge Street, which I emailed when they did their kickoff for a community center with 2 swimming pools instead of a shelter. That site is 150 meters from Rosedale subway station, and there are an abundance of encampments in that area that are constantly being cleared away, yet they're getting a community center where we're getting a shelter. And when I emailed them to ask if they were getting a shelter, they said no, because at 1,900 square feet, it's too small for a shelter. There are so many areas that aren't being addressed here and contradict each other. I feel that the city has really lost our trust. First and foremost, the trust is just not there. We don't have faith that, you know, we feel very discriminated against, to be honest.
Okay.
Loretta,
Can you wrap it up, please? Yeah.
Yep, sure. Loretta, a lot of the things that you said before are being contradicted now, and we don't know what to place our trust in, to be honest, including in the chat itself. This can't be a town hall if everybody can't see our questions. My question has been up there for quite a while. I can only see 20 questions, and yet somewhere in the chat it's been cited that there are hundreds of questions there. And I know that my neighbor is on as well. She can't see my question. I can't see her question. So how can this be an open chat? And to close off, I will ask Gord Tanner, you saw the results of the focus groups that Public Progress held. What do you think of that?
Okay, thank you, Natasha. Okay, there's a lot there, a lot of different questions. So I'm I'm open to whoever wants to.
No, I'm happy to jump in there, Joe and Natasha. Thank you for your comments and your questions. So, you know, I feel badly that the public trust issue you feel has been broken or compromised, and you know, I think that stems somewhat from the ability of staff to cite these programs directly without consultation broadly with the community. That is what council has asked us to do actually many years ago in 2017, and it's under my leadership that these decisions have been made. I can tell you for, as I mentioned, the many years that I work for the City of Toronto, we have long thought that South Etobicoke along Lakeshore has been ideal location for a shelter program. That it's an area of the city that is, you know, not well served for the homeless individuals that experience that within that part of the city. And you know, what we need to do now is gain your trust, and that means that we need to do that by listening and meeting and committing that, you know, we are all in this together to make this a successful shelter program for the vulnerable people that it will serve, but also for the residents of 3rd Street, for the residents of New Toronto. That is our goal and aim, and we have a track record of doing that with the shelter programs that we've opened. You know, many of which I'll tell you are right now beside large developments that are happening, residential developments throughout the city. So I hear you, and I understand your frustration and others' frustration. This is but one point in the process of our engagement and conversation. and we will continue to listen and do our best to earn your trust that this will be a state-of-the-art program that will support many people.
Thank you, Gord. Loretta?
Yeah, and I'll just add that, you know, to date, a lot of the conversation has been about listening and hearing your feedback and your comments, because we hadn't announced or landed on who the operator would be, what the program population would serve. And now that we've announced that, we can have more deeper conversations with the community on those pieces. And with respect to the QAs and the chat functions, there will be a what we heard document that will be produced and released following this meeting in the coming weeks, and it will include a lot of the questions and comments that are in the chat here, in terms of summarizing them, so that everyone can see what was said. As you're indicating, you can't see it now.
Yeah, just so everyone's clear, and I'll say it again at the end. Yes, put your question in the Q&A. If you do not get a chance to speak at the end, I'll give you the email address again. Of course, we want those questions and those concerns and offers of support sent to the Gmail account that has been set up specifically for this purpose. And we are trying to get through as many questions and answers and concerns and responses as possible. Over to you, Yasmin, next. Yasmin, you've been kind of putting together some of the Q's and A's from the written questions. Can you maybe summarize some of the big ones that are coming forward?
Yes, thank you so much, Joe. And I just want to say that a lot of the questions have already been answered in the discussions and as people ask questions live. So I'm just going to address some questions that haven't been addressed yet. So our question is, what are the counting metrics that were used in 2024 to claim 43 encampments in Etobicoke Lakeshore?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. I saw in the chat sort of the reference to the Toronto Star article that happened this week, which showed maps of encampments in the city. And so the thing to understand from that is that's a point in time. I think March 15th was the date that they used in 25, 24, 23, 22, and 21. So 43 encampments are the number of encampments that our encampment team at the city resolved, you know, in the ward over the course of 2024. We actually employ a full-time outreach team that serves all of Etobicoke at Albion Neighborhood Services. They spend their days, full days, connecting with people that are living outdoors or on the street. And so, you know, I can assure you that the need is there, and that we're doing all the best that we can to connect with people outdoors and get them indoors as quickly as possible.
Great, thank you. Yasmin, do you have another question?
Yeah, another question that a lot of people are asking about is the harm reduction. What do you mean by harm reduction? What kind of supplies will be provided to people?
Great, thank you. Loretta, do you want?
I'm happy to take this as well, Joe. And so I touched a bit on it in my opening remarks, or maybe on the shelter services. Really, you know, the issue of harm reduction is a proven public health intervention to support better health outcomes for people that use substances. And there's a whole range of things that may fall under the sort of banner of harm reduction that might include MAD Canada, anti-drinking and driving programs, but up to and including you know, supervised consumption sites, some of which we have here in the city of Toronto, some of which will not be provided at the shelter program that we're talking about. You know, more than anything else, it is an approach to working with people that is non-judgmental, where we center the person and where they're at and do our best to provide them supports, which could include access to treatment, access to methadone, and other replacement therapies. As I mentioned, the shelter, all our shelters do provide safer use supplies. That includes condoms. It includes clean needles. It includes clean pipes. That's something we've done probably for 25 years in the city. And as I mentioned, those are also public health interventions and supplies that are available at community health centers, at hospitals, and at pharmacies. So, I think, again, this is not a supervised consumption site. We don't expect that we'll be seeing a lot of individuals at this site with significant substance use needs. At the same time, we want to make sure our shelter system is as accessible as it can be to meet people where they're at, to get them back on their feet and into housing with supports as quickly as possible.
Great, thank you, Gord. That raises the whole area raises the issue of community safety, and I think it would be good to get Staff Sergeant Mekantis into this conversation. Can you address the issue of community safety related to harm reduction, perhaps, or even more broadly speaking? Welcome, first of all.
Hello. Hello, thank you for having me. Yeah, my name is Mekantis. I'm currently assigned to the 22 Division Neighborhood Program. I've actually been with the service for this 22nd year, and about 10 of those years I've spent in the community unit. And I know that I worked out in 14 Division many years ago. And we did work with a lot of the shelters there. I believe St. Felix was one of them out in Liberty Village. And we provided a CPTED, which is crime prevention by environmental design. So we do have officers that are trained that'll go out. They'll do a walkthrough with staff, shelter staff, and City of Toronto staff. And we'll go over certain things such as, lines of sight, ways to improve safety. We are in the business of public safety as a police service, and any concerns anybody has, or if anything should, any complaints, we will fully investigate them. But we always try to work, and we do with a lot of community agencies, as well as City of Toronto partners, on including SafeTO Toronto. So.
Great. Well, Scott, over to you. This Scott McKean represents SafeTO folks, and his role, you might say, is kind of making a safe Toronto, not counting what the police do. So, Scott, do you have any points on this, on harm reduction and community safety?
Thanks, Joe, and very nice to be here tonight. I appreciate all the questions. My name is Scott McKean. I'm the Acting Director of Community Safety and Wellbeing at the city, and we work with all partners, including the police. I go way back with Nicholas. We worked in 14 together, and 22 Division. Is very lucky to have him. The neighborhood community officer work that they're doing is exceptional, in the engagement. I think from our perspective, as you're hearing in the questions, that we have to think holistically. I know Gord and his team, and I've worked with Gord serving vulnerable residents in many different capacities, and the work that happens inside the shelter spaces is exceptional. It's like some of the best in the world, and I've worked all over, and through my work here, I've worked all over the world and been in conversations with other folks. As also said in the chat, this is a very Toronto conversation. So I want to assure people that the work that happens inside the building is incredible. That said, we have to think holistically and think about the community. And I see a lot of conversations in the chat about schools and about school safety. And, that's like situational for, children in the community, but also in the environments that they use. And so you heard Nicholas talk about safety audits and conducting those. And that's a way that we can partner with the police service and also partner with other support services. If there's violence, we have a full community crisis response program that will work and support communities that have been impacted by violence. We also work to prevent violence as well. There's a local safety committee in the neighborhood, and we work closely with Deputy Mayor Morley's office and a number of other stakeholders on that. If there's a mental health crisis, we have the Toronto Community Crisis Service, which people can call 211, 911, and mobilize immediate access to those kind of supports. I think the most important part, and having, run shelters in my background and worked with the system, I think one of the most important things is we're developing clear lines of communication and relationships. And so you heard Loretta talk about community liaison committees. That's a way where we can actually explore what's actually happening in real time, and review situations that are coming up either with the shelter or in the surrounding community, and work collaboratively to address those. I think, the relationship between the community and Lynn, I work with Christy Ossington, and that's going to be very critical. Lynn's team and the way that Lynn operates is to be very community focused and to receive those. And I think, I hope some of the information tonight provides clarity around what some of those services are. There's a whole other wealth of city resources that we can bring to bear to try to support folks as this moves forward. None of us will have the answers to everything, and there's some genuine concerns that have been cited here and some amazing ideas that are coming up in the Q&A. So I'm reviewing those. I'll take them back to our team, and we'll remain committed to work with Gord and 22 Division and Deputy Mayor's office to best support the community, and happy to connect with anyone that would like to connect. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you, Scott, very much. Folks, it's 8:27. Our scheduled time was 8:30, but I'm wondering whether we're open to at least, well, maybe 7 or 8 minutes more, and with a view to wrapping it up around 8:40. As long as no one charges overtime on the city side, I think the community will be fine with that. Is that we're good with that? I see a lot of nods here from city staff, so that's great. Yasmin, do you have can you bunch together another group of questions and to ask our panelists?
Yes, for sure. So a lot of people are also talking about the need for the shelter in the communities and are asking what they can do to get involved and how they can support.
Okay, how can they support? Loretta?
So happy for all support and hearing about ways, like once the site opens, there would be opportunity for volunteering, donations, lots of ways the community can get involved once the site is operational in 3 to 5 years. Leading up to then, as part of like our ongoing community engagement, happy to have you be as part of the conversation, provide input and feedback as ways to support.
Great, thank you. I imagine some of that will come in conversation with Conk later on as well. Okay, maybe we'll shift over to oral questions now. Do we have anything, Bree?
Yes, we have a question from Carla Nato.
Carla, welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, thank you so very much for the opportunity. My name is Carla Neto. I'm the Executive Director of Women's Habitat of Etobicoke. And I have to say, I'm a little sad about not talking about or not focusing in the precariousness of the situation of the unhoused. Are shelters the solution to the housing crisis? No. However, we need to have a place to support the unhoused, especially the seniors. There seems to be an assumption that mental health issues and substance issues are only issues that happen to the unhoused. There are families in our communities living in apartments and houses that are struggling with mental health issues. But I guess this is not a concern because it's happening in the comfort of their homes. There are many individuals suffering in our communities. I'm sad that we are not talking about how we can support the seniors, right? How a program like this, which I understand is trauma-informed, can really benefit the most vulnerable folks in our society. So I want to say that as an organization that supports unhoused people as well, you know, with other different issues, we are here to support the community. We are here to support city. I am excited about Christy Ossington being the operator. And I just wanted to say thank you very much. And please, let's come together. Let's support the community, because the seniors are going to be housed, are going to be our neighbors, and it would be so awful for them to be not welcomed, because it's really starting to sound like not in my backyard. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and good night.
Good. Thank you, Carla. Any quick response from folks? Okay, we'll just leave it on the table and hear it well. Yasmin, maybe last round, can you group a bunch of questions together from the written?
I can. Can we make it a 2 question?
Sure, okay, make 2.
I think would be quick. One question is, someone was asking about the ratio of staff and residents. So what would be the ratio?
Okay, ask the other one as well.
And the other one was the age range. So people want to know, what is a senior? Is it 65 plus or is it 50 plus?
So ratio and age range. Loretta, Gord.
Yeah, happy to jump in. So, we will have, during the day, there'd be more staff on site, staff that provide case management supports, and other wraparound supports during the day. Generally, from a case management perspective, you probably have 3 or 4 counselors in this program during the day, but then we have our frontline shelter staff, probably 4 or 5 at any one time in the program with the supervisor. And then you've got other people coming and going. So you've got folks coming to deliver health services or recreation supports or life skills programming. So, you're going to have quite a number of staff that are working at any one time in the building, and it will be custom designed for those purposes. In terms of the age range, 55 plus is what we consider folks who are seniors experiencing homelessness. And that's really due to the fact that, if folks have been experiencing homelessness for a longer period of time, they tend to have issues that seniors who we might think of 65 and up may have. So hope that answers your question.
Great, thank you very much. We'll take the next 2 questions and then call it an evening, and we'll go to Bree and look for 2 people who will ask questions.
I have next on the list Thaddeus Sherlock.
Thaddeus? Thaddeus. Hello, Thaddeus. You can unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
Hello,
I stepped
Thaddeus.
away from the computer.
Yeah, no problem. All good.
Yeah, anyways, yeah, I'm trying to think of one of my other questions because I asked one in the chat. That's not a bit, but thank you so much, Amber, for essentially restating that the LSBW Avenue study, for Lakeshore Boulevard West, would not contradict the placement of the shelter. I sit as a member of the local advisory committee on that study, and it's come to a close, but I see both it and a new housing as thoroughly compatible. That's how you stand up for that. That said, yeah, I guess I'll just reiterate my question from the chat. Is there any potential to integrate or wraparound services in the shelter with the nearby Woods Manor seniors residence? Just because both would be serving similar demographics, and it seems that the location is actually quite helpful.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think, and I think there could be a lot of synergy between the 2 programs. I think that's again, that's where Christy Ossington is a community expert and collaborator and community builder. And I will tell you, I've known Lynn Daly for many, many years. And if there's an idea there, and not to put you on the spot, Lynn, I mean, she will be all over finding out what that opportunity is to bring supports not only to folks in the shelter, but to seniors who might be living in Woods Manor as well. So great question. I think there's lots to explore there.
Okay, thank you, Gord. And the last question we'll take from Bree or through Bree from someone who will do it online.
Okay, and my final question is from MG.
MG, welcome. Can unmute yourself. Just while he or she is unmuting themselves, Bree, how many more questions are there out there?
Quite a bit.
Okay, great.
We have probably at least 20 people with their hands up and 287 in the Q&A.
Okay. Well, I'll speak to that a little later on as we conclude today's proceedings. We don't lose your question. It is valuable, and I know that staff want it, and I know that it will be dealt with or responded to in due course. But MG, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. As Mary Grace is my name, and I, as a volunteer with 2 organizations that support people in our immediate community who are impacted right now with housing and food insecurities. I'd like to know on behalf of both of those organizations, 3 years is a long time for when this is going to be up and running. And what is the plan in the interim to support?
Gord.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question, MG. I mean, we're doing everything we can to support as many people as possible. I mean, if you have individuals you're working with right now who need immediate support, if they're living outdoors, a call to 311 can dispatch our street outreach teams, or a call to central intake to try and access a bed in our system. The reality is each day we have over 100 people right now that call us for a shelter space that we don't have available. And so, while the long-term goal to all of these issues is housing, deeply affordable and supportive housing, we, with our community partners, are doing the best we can. So, this shelter will open in sometime post 2027, and as quickly as possible, we will look at trying to expedite that work and design and get it open as soon as we can. In the meantime, we continue to open other shelters. Actually, we will be opening another one more in the downtown core just this summer, and other shelters from a previous capital plan. So, there are some great community folks like yourself in South Etobicoke doing, amazing work, and we want to support you however we can. Feel free to drop me a line, if you will, after, and if there's a specific question that we can help out with, I'm happy to hear and listen.
Great, thank you very much, MG, and thank you, Gord. Rayhan, can we go to the slides now? We're going to wrap this up and figure out next steps and where to take things from here. So Rayhan, we need the slide deck back up. Slide 21. There we go. Next steps. Gord, what happens after tonight? And your
Thanks.
Comments you want to make?
No, thanks so much, Joe. I mean, listen, this is again a part of a journey, right? We are on in the planning and pre-planning for the opening of this community service. So the meeting summary from tonight will be posted on the website, toronto.ca/663rd. And I think the team, again, will be looking at the questions we did not get to tonight and making sure that those questions get answers and posted. There'll be ongoing discussions, so go to that website. We'll have updated timelines, key milestones, other community meetings which will happen, and I know that Deputy Mayor Morley's office is quite keen on some working groups to address a few of the issues that we discussed tonight. In later this year, I think we'll be getting closer to opportunities for input on the design and potential programming at the site. So, as our partners at Christie Ossington, get prepared for delivering the service, there'll be opportunities there. And I think the other thing maybe we didn't touch on tonight is we often do in advance of an opening of a shelter is do a community walk. Inviting local residents, stakeholders to join us on a community walk. On a community walk, we might identify with our partners at Toronto Police Services and others, areas that we might want to address with respect to increased lighting or other things that we need to pay attention to. So, more opportunities to come. And in summary, I just say, thank you again for your time this evening, for your questions, and for your commitment to your community. And just assuring you that we're with you on the journey of this project, and look forward to future opportunities to discuss it. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you very much, Gord. And closing comments from Deputy Mayor Amber Morley. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Joe, and thank you for taking us through this evening. And again, deep gratitude for everybody who's taken the time. We're at about 227. I think we're almost 300 at our peak in terms of interested and passionate community members on this subject. And I do want to really recognize and acknowledge the important work of the team assembled here today, including our general manager, Mr. Gord Tanner, as well as Lynn, who will be the operator of this site, and again, who has 35 years experience in really grounding these spaces in community, which is something that is essential for us to get this right here in New Toronto. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Those of you who know me, have supported me over the years, know I proudly say that I am the poster child of what's possible when we invest in community. LAMP was a second home to me growing up. I lived in social housing here in the ward in New Toronto in a co-op where my single mom raised myself and my family. And my values and my priorities are deeply grounded in my experiences. And I also hope to be an example to you all about what's possible when we channel our energy into something positive together as a community. It's the best way to resolve the fears and anxieties that are coming up, is to really take that passion, take that energy, and do something good with it. And I know that's what we've done as a community historically. It has served us well. We continue to navigate challenges, which is life. And I think that the more we can come together and rise to those challenges and overcome them as a community and be an example for what care and compassion and supporting people with the conditions to meet their potential looks like, we are all the better for it. So I just want to say thank you again for everyone who's engaged with our office, who's engaged on this topic, who's here tonight, and who will continue to be part of this important conversation as we move it forward. We have a lot of work to do to earn the trust and the confidence of the community, and I know we will get that done, along with standing up an excellent center here to support the vulnerable in our neighborhood. So thank you so much again, and I will turn it back over to you, Joe.
Great, thank you. One last slide, folks. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Morley. That was great final comments. So as the facilitator, I too want to thank everyone. This has been a point in time conversation. It's not the end of the conversation. And as the others have mentioned, there are opportunities to voice your questions, your concerns, your notes of support, your notes of areas that you have concerns, maybe deep concerns. There's an email there that I won't read out, but you can see that will be responded to quite quickly. And there's actually two email addresses. And for program updates, you can go to the city's website with that /66 third. The slides will be up. These slides here will be up in the next few days, and the video recording will be available in the next couple of weeks. So with that said, a good night to all, each and every one of you. Have a good sleep. Bye for now.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.